Hey there, Caleb Wojcik here, and welcome to episode 78 of my podcast. I'm here with my wife, Jen, who has been a wedding photographer since she started a business in 2011, and we're going to talk about how she built it, how she scaled it, and if you're in the wedding industry, whether doing photo or video, or you're just trying to build up your client business, you should learn something from this conversation. So thanks for being here with me, Jen.
Yeah.
Jen has not been on a podcast before.
I've not been on a podcast before.
You were on a video with me recently about the EOS R. People seem to like our camaraderie, our vibe.
I didn't read any of the comments or watch the video.
You probably shouldn't read comments on the internet.
Yeah,
it's a dangerous place.
I'll believe that it went well.
So back in, what was it, 2011, we got married.
Good memory.
And then you knew you wanted to be a wedding photographer.
Before that. Yeah.
And so...
Are we allowed to swear?
Yes.
Okay. Because your dumbass bought me a camera before we got married.
It was like a pre-wedding present. I bought a Canon 60D and the cheap Nifty 50. I think it was the Canon 50mm 1.8. Because we got like a kit lens.
I don't
and then
remember
you got,
that kind of stuff.
You got,
but yeah,
we
had a
50
cheaper
mil,
50. Yeah.
And you like loved it.
Loved it.
Because there was bokeh and blurred.
I was so artsy.
Yeah,
I was so artsy.
You look back at those photos ever?
No, that's not true. I used to look at those photos. I don't even know where I would find them now, but yeah, they probably aren't
way back
that great.
In your blog archives. They're still there.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I wouldn't go back there.
So you knew you wanted to be a wedding photographer, and I think it was almost a full year to a year and a half before you got your first wedding.
Right, because we moved and we were on the road for, I don't remember how many months. Yeah. So that was kind of great because each place we visited, whether it was friends or family, I would say, hey, I'm learning photography. I have this camera. It's probably how most people get started, where it's just like, can I do a portrait session or a family session or a newborn session or whatever it was. So that was just kind of how I learned my camera, learned how to interact with people in front of my camera. Because, there was no way I could start a business while we were kind of nomadic like that. But it was a great way to just kind of build a skill set for sure.
And I think that having a client-based business takes kind of three different, assets, I guess you would say. One of them is skill set. So that was the very first thing you worked on. You need to be able to use a camera, be comfortable with it, be comfortable with people directing them and that sort of thing. Then you need to have a network, which enables you to actually get reached out to get introductions to people in the wedding industry. That's coordinators usually are the people that get the client first, and then they find all the vendors.
Yeah, there's kind of a hierarchy of who gets reached out to and booked first. And it's either the photographer, the venue, or the coordinator, I would say, on most weddings.
So we'll get into networking with venues and coordinators specifically. But the third tier is your portfolio, and that's what people
connect with.
That's pretty much all they can see until they meet with you. Is they go to your website, they look at your images, they try to see if that's the style they like or the colors and the feel of things.
Yeah, how do your photos make them feel?
I guess the fourth thing could be brand. So like, how do you brand yourself on the website and maybe on Instagram if people go that deep or something. But so I want to talk about each of those three verticals, but we're kind of on this skill set one. So we bought a Canon 60D, or I bought you one.
Yeah.
We went to a community college class called Intro to Photography, which was like 20 people. You took vigorous notes.
Oh my gosh, my notebook would be really fun to go back through.
We looked at what is shutter speed? What is f-stop? We had
which I had no idea.
Yeah.
I think I remember, I understood aperture. And when he got to ISO, I just did not understand.
It took a long time for you to figure out what ISO
meant. And I'm such a visual person, which you think, great, like photography, you're visual, this works. But I remember you having to draw something that would explain ISO to me because I didn't understand just how bumping numbers was letting more light in and what that meant versus, aperture and shutter speed had a very visual, picture for me or whatever, but I didn't understand.
Until you started putting the camera in hand and using it. That's when you really understood what the things do. And so...
Which is what I always tell people is in order to understand how to take a good photo, just start taking photos.
Yeah.
And just start messing with settings.
And so building your skill set was the first piece. You said, well, we went to a class, you took photos of whoever, you took photos of our family and friends and their family and friends, and you just did like free sessions, family sessions while we were on that trip.
Yeah. Basically, I would say like, hey, we're going to be in town for this amount of days. If you or any of your family and friends want photos, like I'm basically doing this for free and we'll deliver any and all great photos for nothing. Like I just need to practice kind of thing.
And then the next thing you did after we finished our road trip, we moved here to San Diego right at the beginning of 2012. I believe your first wedding was towards the end of 2012. It was a friend from college.
But it wasn't in San Diego. We went up to the Northwest, the
so
Pacific
between
Northwest for
moving to San Diego and that wedding, was second shooting like the main thing you worked on?
I think it had to have been, right? Because I didn't have any clients in San Diego that season. Even my wedding that season, I think, was a November wedding. So when we decided that we were going to stay in San Diego, I started reaching out to photographers in the area that I liked their work, or sometimes it was just photographers that responded back to me, or, whatever it was. And it would usually start with a coffee meeting of, hey, who are you? What are you all about? And then sometimes they'd randomly make the ask of, I need a second shooter this season, or why don't you just come along with me to a wedding? Or, it would turn into second shooting work at some point. And
so was that like the biggest part of feeling comfortable at that first wedding, or maybe even landing that first wedding?
Absolutely. Because I had never, apart from our wedding, I had not been at a wedding in a professional capacity before second shooting. So there has to be people out there that go into their first wedding not having shot a wedding at all, but I'm not that kind of person. So I just had maybe a handful of second shooting gigs before booking my first wedding. And my bride knew that I was new and that I was trying things out. And she was really excited to, she was an old friend, so she was excited to have me there.
But she could still see photos in a portfolio of weddings you'd
Absolutely. Because, every first and second shooter relationship is different. And I think when I started second shooting, the agreement was you can use the images privately to book your brides, but don't put them on your website. Don't submit them for publication elsewhere. Don't, sell them as your own, basically. But if you're talking to a bride who just kind of wants to see what your work is like and what you're capable of, then yeah, absolutely, you can show those images.
So you would put together galleries, but they would just be private.
Right.
Or have a password or something like that. And then you could share them with potential clients.
Yeah. And in those first couple of brides and those first couple of bookings, I was very transparent about that of I'm new to this, but I have worked weddings and I do have the experience. I just don't have a full portfolio of work. I can show you what I've shot while shooting with and for other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so going into that first wedding, how did you feel?
Terrified. Heck yeah.
I second shot it with you, I believe.
I think so too, yeah.
Yeah.
I was very confident, I think, at that point in understanding the ebb and flow of a wedding day, because no matter who's getting married, where they're getting married, how special and unique and beautiful the day is, there is a rhythm to a wedding
exactly
day.
The same, is that what you're saying?
Yeah. But, so I felt confident in at least having my feet under me in that regard. But as far as being the lead on the day and facilitating the timeline and directing the bridal party and getting the shots that I needed at the reception, I definitely felt the weight of that's on me this time. I've been the person that's been the support before, but that's on me this time.
So once you had that first wedding behind you, how did you start to scale up? Because it took a while.
Oh, yeah. It took a while.
I would say, I think it kind of doubled each year for a while. It was 1, 2, 4, 7, and then 15, and then up to 20 some before you kind of stepped away for a bit. But how did you go and start to scale then? Because obviously there was more things to learn. We were reinvesting second shooting money into different lenses and higher camera bodies. Eventually we got a 5D3 and some L series glass, and you were more legitimate to people to be a second shooter as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely a question people have.
Yeah, what kind of gear do you have and what do you shoot on? And like Canon shooters tend to hang out with Nikon shooters just because of profile, specifications where I don't want to have to color match to a Nikon camera and that kind of stuff. But
so what did you do in San Diego, in the San Diego market, to get more wedding clients, to land clients at all? What were all the things you tried, and then what actually worked?
I think the biggest thing, oh my gosh, the things I tried that didn't work. Some of the things I tried that did not work were going to kind of general wedding networking events, where they'd kind of be like monthly mixers of come, meet different people and hear about different, topics that we're discussing
and
this
who is
month.
At those?
And
like
it was
all
a
kinds
mix.
of vendors?
Yeah, all kinds of vendors.
Like DJs.
Yeah,
and
DJs,
stationary,
coordinators. Yeah, florists and everybody was there, which is great. But I'm not going to get my bride from a DJ. Like the
most
DJs.
likely, yeah. Usually people don't hire the DJ first.
Yeah. Which, I mean, maybe I would, but I never did. And things like that didn't work. What ended up eventually working was reaching out to people whose work I really was inspired by and wanted to shoot that type of wedding. So I would make the ask of like, hey, I really like what you're doing. Is there any way I can take you out to coffee kind of thing, with no intention behind it other than like, I really want to get to know you.
What kinds of vendors were these people?
Usually they were coordinators, just because the coordinator had usually some sort of say in the aesthetic of the wedding day. If they were helping a bride do more than logistics, if they were actually styling and designing the event. And that was helping shape my portfolio while also building my clientele, if that makes sense.
So you would reach out, you'd find them, research them. You just find them through blogs or Google search or
I think
magazines?
Back in the day, they were blogs. So Style Me Pretty was and probably still is huge. And they would post like 3 times a day. And I remember I would check that website religiously. And if I saw anybody that was in the San Diego area where I saw something really like a really beautiful wedding or inspiration shoot or something like that, then I would reach out and say like, hey, I saw this feature. You killed it. Would really love to buy you a cup of coffee kind of thing. And that went really, really well. Sometimes like one of my best friends is somebody that I randomly reached out to because I saw an inspiration shoot that she did, and she and I ended up working a lot together. But then, of course, you'd have the dud coffee meetings where you'd meet up, and it was almost kind of like a first date where it's like, hey, yeah, you're great, but we're not vibing kind of a thing.
Yeah, I mean, that happens, I think, anytime you try to network. It happens like I go to conferences and you vibe with certain people and you don't really get along. Nothing wrong with the other people, but it's just maybe not a good fit, or you don't have the same interests, or you just don't connect.
Yeah.
And so is that where you got your next few clients?
I would say so. I would say that I started to be recommended by the people that I was connecting with professionally and personally. So it wasn't just, did I like my work, or did they like my work? Did I like theirs? It was a lot also. Can I recommend this person on a personal level? Like, do I know that they are going to take care of you on your wedding day, whether that's them recommending me or me recommending them? That became a huge part of kind of my referral network.
So as you scaled to 2 weddings a year, 4, 8, you continue to second shoot a lot.
A lot. Like if I was not shooting my own wedding, I was shooting with somebody else the next weekend kind of thing. Or I would have...
Or double up.
Yeah, I had a lot of double weekends where I had a wedding on a Friday night or a Saturday night or Saturday and a Sunday night. Like I was second shooting a lot. And eventually, or at the beginning, I was second shooting for a bunch of not random people, but I was second shooting for a lot of different people. Eventually, I became kind of the go-to second shooter for a couple people, which was great for me because we really got into a rhythm. We knew what was expected of each other. There was kind of, you got to that place where you were working with each other where you can talk without talking and you know, kind of what you're after.
Who covers what.
Yeah. But it was a lot of weddings, a lot of weekends, either mine or someone else's.
And let's talk pricing a little bit. How much, I don't remember how much your first few weddings were. I think
my first wedding was $1,200.
Okay. And then.
But again, a friend, first wedding.
And we traveled to
probably made
I think
nothing
we stayed with family because it was like around Portland. But
it was around Thanksgiving. I feel like it was either the weekend before or after Thanksgiving or something.
I think so too. Yeah. So you did $1,200 your first wedding, then slowly ramped it up. But how about second shooting? Kind of what pricing did you start with?
I could not tell you. I think I probably went to my first wedding as a quote unquote second shooter, even though I was probably there more as a shadow. I think I probably went for free or close to it. And then once they saw that I had the skill set and that they wanted to shoot with me more, they offered to pay me. But I eventually,
maybe just what you topped out.
Yeah, my standard rate as a second shooter was $50 an hour.
So 6-hour, 8-hour, 10-hour weddings.
Yeah.
Sometimes more. So I think the main reason why you second shot was money.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I mean, at the beginning I was learning.
But skill set for sure.
Also
comfort.
Yeah, money for sure. But also I really enjoyed shooting with some of the people that I shot with. And it was a great way to spend a Saturday and earn a good paycheck.
And so that money could be reinvested into business licenses, website, branding, gear,
software,
all that kind of stuff.
Things.
And film when you eventually started shooting film and stuff too. Yeah. We don't need to get into that right now. But so you're second shooting, you're growing your skill set, you're making some money, you're slowly networking to get more clients. How are you working on portfolio? Because your second shooting gigs, you have basically no control over the venue it's at, the type of wedding it is, like kind of the style, the format. It could be a church wedding and you want to do outdoor weddings and you couldn't really get to a portfolio as quickly as you wanted to because you have to basically just sit and wait for the people you're second shooting for to give you a wedding that is the style, like the weddings you want to do. So,
well, not only that, but I mean, that's definitely a difficulty, but even more so, I felt like the biggest obstacle to creating a portfolio as a second shooter was that I didn't have a relationship with that bride and groom and I wasn't directing the photographs. So I was trying to take the type of shots that I would take without the relationship and the direction. So it was a lot of like cropping what was going on if what was going on didn't make sense for kind of my eye and how I would shoot it and trying to make it feel how I wanted it to feel when it didn't feel that way.
As a second shooter, you only have certain times of the day where you're not with the other photographer. So like usually you'd split.
Right.
And like maybe you would go with the bride or usually the first would go with the bride.
No, they would go with the bride. I'd go with the groom.
Because those shots are more important.
Right.
You'd go with the groom and stuff. And so
but
you
then
could get those shots how you want because you're directing, but the rest of the time you're like over the shoulder.
Yeah. Or you're the tight lens and they're the portrait lens kind of thing. Or reverse. Or you're the wide and you're exactly. So you're kind of trying to capture what they're not capturing, which is the whole point of a second shooter. But while you're building a portfolio, for me, and this is me, like my portfolio is not, a bunch of wides. I have a much more intimate eye than that. But it's also not a bunch of me sitting on the 70-200 getting like ring shots and hair and hands and like dress details and things from over the guy's shoulder, girl's shoulder that I'm shooting with.
So you couldn't get it through second shooting. So what were kind of the ways that you could build your portfolio to then enable you to land the clients that you wanted to land?
I would say the two ways that I developed that most successfully were one, attending some workshops, a pretty large investment, but I think the imagery that I came home with enabled me to raise my prices, speak to the type of brides I wanted to speak to. And then on another way that I would kind of try to create that portfolio would be to reach out to those people that were inspiring me, that I was connecting with, that I felt a creative energy with, and say like, hey, let's put something together that both of us are really after for our portfolio and our work so that we can book the type of brides that we're booking. So it became inspiration shoots, which again, time consuming and an investment. But I think allowed me to level up both in price and in types of weddings and just overall level of work for sure.
So describe some of the workshops that you went to, because I think when you were in that phase in like 2012, 13, 14, it wasn't as popular of a thing. Like it
really was
workshops took off
Yeah.
like after 2015, 2016. And I'm assuming now, so you're kind of out of the wedding photography game, but I'm assuming.
I bet they're still, I mean, I would assume they are. I don't know. Maybe it's more online stuff, but I have no idea.
But talk through maybe like the investment cost and then where they were and what you got out of these workshops in case someone is looking into taking one.
I think the very first workshop I went to was just an away day up in Huntington Beach. And I went up with a friend, and she and I woke up early and, rocked out to music all the way up. Spent the day shooting. They had set up kind of, I think, 3 or 4 different types of scenarios. So like over here, you've got kind of the inspiration bridal party, and over here you've got the couple, and over here you've got like a cake set up, and you've got different things going on. So you just bopped as groups from thing to thing.
And you're also, did you get any time to direct those people, or are you standing there with like 8 other photographers at the same time, all like firing away?
No, photography workshops, at least my experience was, there's 5 to 15 of you, and you all get time, but you get like 2 minutes, or you get.
So you gotta be on it.
You gotta be on it. Which, I mean, you gotta be on it on a wedding day. So it's good practice and like, get your shit done.
Yeah.
But there's definitely like some elbow throwing sometimes and some weird stuff. But it's definitely not the type of like situation that you have with your quote unquote bride and groom, where it's just the 3 of you and you're building a relationship and kind of a rhythm and a way to shoot together for sure.
So you did one that was drivable.
I did that one. And then the next one, I decided to go to Rome. Yeah, that was
a few days after surgery?
A few days after surgery. That was...
so if people don't know, Jen had cancer it came back twice, so 3 total surgeries.
First occurrence was in 2013, though, and that was my first workshop.
So she had cancer on her tongue, this squamous cell carcinoma, and you had booked this workshop, and then you found out, and then they scheduled the surgery, and you couldn't get your money back, was kind of the situation.
Yeah. And then my stubborn ass was like, well, I'm going to go anyway. And I lived and worked and studied in Rome as well. Like,
so you're like really familiar with Italy and Rome.
So I was very familiar with it. It's like, I can go, I know how to get, do all the things. And so other than the plane ride and the physicality of what I was doing, I was not intimidated by the other aspects of it.
You couldn't really, after each of these surgeries, you couldn't really speak. Did you speak while you were there?
I couldn't talk. That was a big, I did not, I remember you
and I talking about it. You're in another country with a bunch of other people that, I would say most people were probably American.
Oh, all of them.
Like all of them.
All the girls were from the States. Yeah. But I had talked to the girls who ran it beforehand, and I, told them what was going on. They took great care of me. Everybody was super sweet.
They let you rest all the time.
They let me rest. Yeah. And then the people that we were directing all weekend, they knew what was going on. And I was talking. I was just kind of mumbling.
And you took a cheap flight, if I remember, coming home.
Yeah. You flew me through Russia.
Yeah. And you had to get off the plane.
Yeah.
In
with
the
no
snow.
coat.
Yeah.
In Russia.
They didn't have a boarding tunnel.
I had to walk down the stairs and walk into the airport.
And you couldn't talk.
And I couldn't talk. And oh my gosh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, we're bringing back a lot of great memories.
That was my second workshop. And then my third was up in Big Sur. And that was specifically a film photography workshop, because I would say 2013-ish, I started dabbling in film photography, and
you wanted to learn from a specific person.
I wanted to learn from a specific person and went to his workshop, and we probably had 6 to 8 shoots that weekend. And as far as like beefing up my portfolio, it was definitely worth it. But it was quite the hefty investment at the time.
Thousands of dollars for the last two, for sure.
Yeah.
So you had a second shoot to be able to afford to go to these things to build your portfolio. So it was like a kind of a roundabout way of, I'm at least getting paid to do photography for weddings.
Yes.
These aren't the photos that I want to show people on my website, or they won't.
Or I'm not allowed to show them in certain ways.
Or I'm not allowed to show them because of my relationship with the first photographer, and they're not going to help me book the kinds of clients that I want or be able to do stuff in the style that I want. So I'm going to work on those, build up my skill set, be really comfortable with my camera, be really comfortable in the situations that we're in during weddings. I'm going to use that money to pay for workshops that can help me get the portfolio, or pay for inspiration shoots. So let's talk about inspiration shoots a little bit. Who fronts the bill on the inspiration shoots a lot of the time?
I do. Not the full bill. Like, everybody pays for their portion, I would probably say. So,
and you were shooting film on a lot of them. So
and I was shooting film on a lot of them. So, like,
cost of film development,
a few $100s every time I would shoot an inspiration shoot. And, you know, obviously the florist is out money, and, you know, people are out money on clothes. And
how many inspiration shoots do you think you've done?
Oh, man, I don't know. I really couldn't count.
Up to 10, maybe?
Yeah, easily.
And each one is a lot of work leading up to it, a lot of work on the day. It's a full day, shooting in multiple locations, usually multiple dresses. You have like a fake bride and groom, and sometimes other stuff like tables.
Yeah, sometimes you do a full tablescape, make it look like an actual full wedding if you can sometimes. Yeah.
And the whole point of it typically is to try to get featured.
Back in the day, it was to get featured, because it used to be, I'm going to sound so old right now, it used to be you'd get featured on Style Me Pretty or on Once Wed or on these huge wedding blogs. And when you were featured, you were then given, you know, an Instagram post, and you'd get a huge boost in Instagram numbers.
They let you put a badge on your website.
Yeah, they let you put a badge on your website.
It's probably still
featured
like
on.
this.
Yeah, it probably is. I don't think you get this social media bump anymore like you used to. And I think there's so many blog posts. I know that as I was exiting the wedding industry, a lot of features just weren't being taken anymore, because there was such an abundance of people doing inspiration shoots, or there was an overabundance of weddings being submitted, and people just really weren't getting the features anymore. But
yeah, I think you were kind of mid-wave with people coming into wedding photography. I think there was like this huge wave of people that, from the advancement in like DSLRs, as well as the internet of wedding blogs and Instagram, and just like, it was like every day a new person was like a wedding photographer.
Oh, for sure.
In every major market. And so the competition just got harder and harder. The pricing got more and more competitive.
Yeah.
There's only so many weddings. It is kind of a zero-sum game. So people would, you know, take whatever wedding they could sometimes and lower their pricing. And
right.
So it's
there's kind of two strategies to it. There's, you know, the churn and burn of, I'm going to take as many weddings I can at whatever price that I'm comfortable, you know, allowing that. And you're, you know, as always, trading time for money. So you can shoot 50 to 60 weddings a year, or you'd have the strategy of, well, I only want to shoot, you know, 20 or 25 weddings a year. But if you're only shooting 20 to 25 weddings a year, you need your prices to, you know, accommodate for the fact that you're not shooting 60 weddings a year and burning yourself out. And when you're in an area like San Diego, where it's not only, you know, a popular place to get married, to come down from LA or over from Arizona or whatever, like, people are flying in from all over the country to get married in San Diego. So there's no off season.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of photographers and a lot of brides.
What else did you do to try to separate yourself from other wedding photographers in San Diego, as well as how did that help you land clients? So like, when you went to meet with a client for coffee, or that you got that initial reach out or whatever, like, what did you do on your website or on review sites or like in your ad on Style Me Pretty once you got accepted into their little black book and things like that. How did you try to differentiate yourself from other wedding photographers?
I would say once things really got rolling, the thing that differentiated or set me apart from most photographers in San Diego was that I shot film. I was probably one of 3 to start with, and then eventually, or, maybe 3 to 5. There's a lot more film shooters in San Diego now, but at the beginning, it was just a handful and a couple of people, and film has a very specific aesthetic, and that was kind of becoming really popular on the wedding blog. So like whenever there was a huge feature that someone really responded to, it was usually because the photographer was a film shooter. So I would have brides coming to me specifically for, oh, you shoot film, and they didn't really even know what that means. They just knew that they liked the look of whatever that meant. And I think that for a while was what kind of set me apart from the rest of San Diego.
Talk through shooting film a little bit, because I think a lot of people that do wedding photography will say they shoot film and they shoot like 5 rolls or something. You were kind of film first, or film whenever you could, which...
I was film all day except for the reception.
And you would, for a while, I don't know, maybe you did this every single time. I feel like you would back up on film. So you would literally like take film shots and then like take similar digital shots.
I did that
until you were like
I would say I did that for a couple weddings, because I spent time on inspiration shoots double backing it for sure, because I was like, I don't know if I'm still getting my film feet under me.
When you're manual focusing
and
I'm
metering and I'm
Which film cameras did you go through?
I was on the Contax 645 for a while, and then I ended up on the Pentax.
And you got like an updated viewfinder. You like sent it off to somebody and they like cleaned it or whatever, and it still came back. And
it was still
like
a foggy lens.
I think you need new windshield wipers because I can't see through this glass at all. And then you switched the Pentax. Why?
The Pentax was just a workhorse of a camera. Like the Contax is notoriously like finicky, and like if it gets too hot, it kind of takes a break. If it gets too cold, it kind of takes a break, and you can't do that on a wedding day. So the glass is beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous, but the Pentax was kind of like the Mark III, where like this is not going to fail. It's not going to stop working.
And also the Contax, I think, had reached a peak of price as well. Because
so we decided to sell it.
It was like everybody wanted
popular,
it. So I think we sold on eBay, and we got 2. I got
2 bodies, 3 lenses, 4 inserts. Like it was just this.
You got like a whole set of
because
backups, because the film cameras are old and a lot of places don't know how to repair them and things like that. So back to, you shot a lot of film. You shot pretty much the whole day on film as much as possible, which meant everything but the reception, and then if it was like an indoor ceremony or something like that. But
which even like eventually I started to not have those weddings because I was attracting film brides who were getting married outside. So even like the medium I was choosing was kind of shaping my portfolio as well, which is what I wanted. Like I wanted outdoor brides. I didn't want
you didn't want church weddings necessarily.
Yeah.
And you could still...
I had some beautiful church weddings.
Right, but they didn't hire you to take photos inside the church.
Right.
Like you would take ceremony photos, obviously, and you do the family photo thing at the altar that a lot of people would want and things like that, but you'd shoot all that digital because otherwise it'd be super grainy and black and white or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I think that still let people hire you to do what you were good at, which was outdoor portraiture.
Right. I think that was why brides hired me, was my outdoor portraiture, where I can get that buttery, ooey gooey, sunlit shot on film, was why I think most brides came to me.
Do you think we missed any gaps in this like 3-tiered approach that I talked about, with like skill set? You practiced film, we would literally just like go out into a field and you would take photos of me and like learn how to meter and that sort of thing. You would learn from friends, you would learn from online or workshops, and then you would put it to the test kind of in inspiration shoots.
I never asked anyone to pay me for something that I didn't already know that I knew how to do.
I think that's a really good point.
I never went into a wedding thinking, okay, I'll figure this out, because one, I'm just not that personality, but two, I don't think that's a responsible way to conduct business.
Yeah.
So I never sold myself as I can do this unless I knew that I could do it. And for me, know that I could do it means that I can do it from muscle memory. I can do it without thinking, because I have to do it without thinking. Because while I'm taking the photo, I'm talking to my coordinator, directing my bride, watching my timeline, and taking the photo. So the taking the photo part almost has to be like automatic. So the taking the photo part had to be ingrained in me from practice. And that's something I started doing as soon as you bought me that camera from the get-go. Like, when I could practice, I was practicing with anyone and everyone that would agree to get in front of my lens.
Yeah. And that's something I recommend to people too, with especially photo and video stuff. But don't show up to a job that you're hired to do and try something for the first time. So to me, that means any piece of equipment that I purchase, I have to use on my own for filming my own YouTube video or just filming something I'm going to throw away, because I don't want to show up to a gig, not know how to work an audio recorder or a certain lens or how it's going to look, or try a new picture profile or
right. Like, how many times have you asked me to come into this studio because you're like, hey, Jen, I just got this XYZ thing that I need to, learn and practice and like put through the whatever on. And I'm like, okay, I'll sit there and drink my coffee while you do whatever you need to do, kind of thing.
I think there's only one time I remember it was one of my first gigs. I tried to do like some sort of flat profile on the 5D Mark III that I downloaded, and I didn't understand how the highlights would work. And so like there was probably only like 3% of our shoot got blown out because like a bunch of light came in through the window. But
the cloud shifted or something.
Yeah, but I told the client, I was like, this is like unusable. Like, I showed it to him. I was like, I messed this up. This 20 seconds of this one video is not going to work. What do you want to do?
Yeah, that's the other thing is like owning your mistakes if you did mess up, kind of thing.
I was like, we can cut that out and just like connect these. We can do like a graphic over it, but like, this is what I'm working with. I messed up. And then since that, and that was like 6 years ago, I don't try new things. Like
on a shoot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that I think it limits me a little bit, because my stuff starts to like be the same and look the same, but now I get hired by the same type of people for the same type of work because of that. And I don't like risk it as much. But you shouldn't do that when you're paid. You should do it with inspiration shoots and stuff. And
like your time to play and experiment is on your own time. It's not on your client's time or dime, for that matter. Like, there's a moment during the wedding day where I can, try something new. It's not when the bride is walking down the aisle. It's not during the first kiss. It's not during any of that.
Let me try this like face tracking or eye tracking autofocus on this moment.
It's during the reception when I've already got 500 dancing shots and, we're good, kind of thing.
Yeah, you mess with like flash settings or things like that when
it's while I'm second shooting, where I know that I've gotten the shots that my second shooter needs. I'm like, hey, what if I did this? Because I've got 5 minutes to kill before the next thing or whatever. It's not on your client's dime. Yeah.
And so you built up the portfolio through inspiration shoots and workshops. You built up the network of people in San Diego that you kind of like vibed with.
Yeah.
At maybe you did go to some events, meet those people. You cold email some of them.
I did. I mean, once, that was the other thing about the wedding industry, is once you kind of found your people.
It's really small.
Well, it's not only really small, but it kind of gets a little high school, if that makes sense. So
Click-ish.
Like, there's certain people that are doing this type of thing, and there are certain people that are doing that type of thing. And that's not a bad thing at all, but you eventually kind of find your way into whatever one of those groups it is. And then you all kind of start having, or at least in San Diego, we started having our own events and our own networking things and our own mixers. And we would invite like new people and or people that we knew of but hadn't met yet, or, what have you. We would just kind of be like, hey, we're all going to be together at this place at this time. Come hang with us, kind of thing.
So you got up to a full-time, what I would call a full-time
I would say it was my definition of a full wedding season. It was what I knew that I could handle and still be a good wedding photographer to all of my clients without cutting corners. For me, that was 25. I know people that can do way more than that.
Were you second shooting on top of that too?
Yes. I was still second shooting. From like start to finish, was always second shooting.
Just because you had time.
We had time. It was money in the door easy. That was pretty easy.
Because you go and you're done.
Yeah, I hand off the files. I come home. Like it got to a point where it was really hard on my body. It sounds like it's just a day away with your camera, but in truth, it's, you need to pack the night before, you need to prep the night before, it's the morning of, like making sure, everything's in line for that day. You've reviewed your timeline, you talk to your first shooter. Yeah, it's super late night drives.
Not eating for 8 hours and then
don't eat, don't go to the bathroom, don't sit down. Yeah, it's shoveling some mashed potatoes in your face because you've got 5 minutes and the caterer isn't going to feed you and you're a vegetarian. So it kind of started to wear on me a little bit, the amount that I was second shooting. And then eventually I think it was because, the amount that I second shot started to affect how I was feeling about my clients and my business. And I got worn out, to be honest, just got tired.
So did you get tired of weddings? Or photography, or I know you also got like trigger finger in your hand, which impacted things too, or
trigger finger in my hand, and then I had that issue with my foot, and it was actually physically wearing on my body. Mm-hmm. I remember going to a doctor and talking to them about trigger finger, and she was like, "Well, could you just not hold a camera for 8 months?" And I said, "No, this is my business. I can't stop holding my camera." What was the question? I forget.
I was trying to get to, you got up to a certain point where it was like a full-time living, I would say. And this was maybe 2017.
2017.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So like in your 7th full year of doing it.
Which is hilarious.
Maybe like 6th, because 2011.
2011 was still like
really
you were practicing and stuff. Which is
Why
hilarious.
Is it
hilarious? Well, because there's a high burnout in wedding photography. And I remember at the start of it, there was kind of a joke about it, and it being like a 7-year burnout was kind of the standard, whatever. And that definitely was where I hit.
Yeah,
was
7-year
burnout. Yeah.
So what could you have done, do you think, to not burn out from weddings? So someone listening to this that wants to do any type of client work,
mm-hmm.
what could you have done to not burn out?
I think for me personally, it would have been not second shooting as much as I did. Because I think the stamina and the excitement and the kind of passion for weddings was spent on second shooting rather than on my own business. So that by the time I had like a couple full years of a full season, don't get me wrong, I loved my brides, I loved my weddings, but I was just kind of burnt out on the grind of wedding season and work and all of it. And I think it was because, like we said at the beginning, I was back-to-back shooting like every month, every weekend, sometimes twice a weekend, second shooting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you would just be, the weekend would go by, you would shoot probably 10 to 20 plus hours the weekend, and then you'd have to come back and you'd have to work on the edits of your previous one. You have to go to coffee meetings and meet more people, and it was just
nonstop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you stopped.
For a variety of reasons. Like, I still love weddings. I still feel all ooey gooey when I think about weddings. But I stopped because I think the person photographing your wedding should be super excited to be there. And I got to a point where I wasn't super excited to be there. My last few weddings were like kind of close friends of mine or like family friends of mine. And I was really excited about that. But the thirst for whatever I had at the beginning of, my wedding career wasn't there anymore. And I think that a bride deserves better than that.
Mm-hmm. But you still do photography.
Heck yeah.
And you also kind of transitioned into, you started helping my business with things. You go to video shoots with me sometimes, help me with the digital side of the business, and SwitchPod definitely, which really needed a lot of help like towards the end of 2018 and into 2019. You started a stock photography company with your friends called Sourced.co. Sourced.co.com, or is it source.co? What is it?
It's sourceco.com.
Sourced.co.com.
Yeah.
So you still been doing photography and doing a lot of
doing
other stuff.
photography in a variety of ways. And honestly, can I change my answer a little bit? Not only was it second shooting, but I am the type of personality that if you need me to jump, I say how high and when. I was really good at what I did. I don't think it was good for me. I don't think answering to clients at any time of the day or night, was good for me and my mental health. So I kind of removed myself from client situations, and that's why I help you on SwitchPod. That's why at Sourced.co I have a team of, girls that we all collaborate together and put a product out together. But I don't have direct client,
And you're not the face of.
And I'm not this.
You're not like the entrepreneur,
right?
Part of it.
Yeah, I also found out that I'm not a good. Like, I can be the captain of the ship. I don't like being the captain of the ship. I'd rather be the first mate or part of the crew. Like, I don't
nothing
thrive.
Wrong with that.
Yeah, I don't thrive being the captain of the ship. It's a lot of pressure for me in the long run that just I don't do well with. So I think that combination of things was why I eventually decided to step back.
So to end, what would you say to somebody that's either like starting from scratch, has another first wedding yet, or someone else that's just like is trying to get more clients in the door, trying to land their first hired job at the price they want, doing what they want? Like, it's a big gap between those people I just said that you should talk to.
I was going to say, those are two very
the newbie
different
that
people.
Has never been paid for before, but then like all the way up to someone that is still trying to get like that. It's two answers, probably.
I think the difference between, the newbie that has not been paid yet is the person that needs to continually work on their skill set. So like their thing to master is their skill set, so that when they do move to the next level of what to do, when they start making the reaches and meeting the people that are kind of going to change their career and open doors for them, that they already have that established. Once they have the opportunities to meet the people that they want to meet. And I think the next step is positioning yourself in the type of next to or in the type of work that you want to do. And if that isn't available to you by being, booked, create it. Like, go out there and just make something that you want to do, because then you'll have that to show as an example for like, this is what I do. Like, they don't necessarily need to know that
you're not paid for it.
Right. But like, this is what I made. This is what I'm capable of, is essentially what you're saying. And then that's going to attract either the types of like, professional relationships that you need to make in order to move into the next phase of your career, or it's going to attract the type of clients that you need and want.
I remembered a story.
Uh-oh.
We're gonna flash back.
Oh no!
So I think the first pictures you took of someone in a wedding dress were your cousin, and she was in a wedding dress that you got on Craigslist.
Yeah.
And we went out into a field, and her and her boyfriend 100%. That she's not married to now.
No. Yeah. I got a wedding dress on Craigslist. I paid for hair and makeup to come over to our apartment at the time. I think I even paid a florist to make a bouquet for me. I think we had him either bring his own suit or...
I don't think he even wore a suit.
I have no idea.
I think he just wore a tie, and then I think he wore my shirt.
But that was my very first inspiration shoot where it was just me. And clearly I needed some help from my like stylist friends and stuff. But I had not been able to, outside of second shooting, take photos of someone in a wedding dress.
To like put on your website.
To put on my website. So my cousin was coming into town. I said, hey girl, you're getting dressed up for me. Like we're doing something Saturday afternoon. Hope you're on board.
We just donated it back.
Yeah.
I think we just
we tried to Craigslist it again and it didn't work.
But
and then we got rid of it.
It had a stain on it when you bought it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you either photoshopped it out.
But that was an instance of like, I know what I want to do. I have not been hired to do that thing yet. I'm just going to go do it. I'm going to figure out how to do it.
$250?
No idea.
That. Like, I think the dress was like $100 and then hair and makeup, it's got to be at least $50 to $75.
Man, I forgot about that.
Bouquet, yeah. Good times. Should I throw up some of those photos in the video version of this so people can...
Please don't. Please don't.
So where can people go to find out more about your wedding photography that you don't do anymore, but also what else you do?
I run a stock photography company with 3 other girls that I met in the wedding photography business. One's a stylist and former coordinator. One is a brilliant PR and marketing guru. And then another girl is kind of our like aesthetic, coordinator, and she does paper and aesthetics and graphics and all this cool stuff. And we're a foursome that releases imagery every month. And in the wedding industry, you need to not only have your portfolio, but I think this is where I luckily got out of the game. But now you need to like almost have educational content for not only your brides, but, other people in the industry. So we have images that you can use on your website and your Instagram and your Facebook. And so that you're not only leaning on your portfolio when you need to have a conversation about specific things.
Or if you're super early and you don't have a portfolio yet, you
then
can still find imagery as a part of Sourced that
you're not selling as your own,
your style.
Yeah,
but you can kind of
create an aesthetic
and brand.
Yeah, you can create your pricing PDFs and you can build your website and you can do the things that you need to do before you have the imagery to do it. Yeah.
And I think there's like so much coming back to me because I was like a big part of this business. And so like when you decided to shut it down.
We were like, do we, dual business?
Because I did wedding video a couple times. Yeah.
And so then you were like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that.
Just the editing. It's so much. Yeah.
So much footage.
But it just like coming back to like us going to WPPI and buying like DVDs with pricing PDFs and contracts on them. And
more vigorous notes.
Like we tried so many different things. Yeah. And I think that's just part of you don't go to school to learn how to start your own business. And and there's different niches all over the place. So just find people that are sharing information online like we are right now of their experiences. And then also you just got to try stuff.
You just got to do it.
We wasted a lot of money.
Like a lot of money. But
on either on ads or branding, but like then it turned into a full-time thing. And then we decided to shut it down. But that's, if we would have kept it going and the leads would have kept coming in, like it was set up. That was more, we had 1 year of full-time income for you.
It was just throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what stuck. And some of it really worked and took off and some of it didn't. And I think any business owner is going to do that.
Well, thanks for joining me, Jen.
Yeah.
Anytime. We have a baby monitor off camera of our baby.
Does
sleeping.
Everybody podcast after they put the baby to
and
bed?
Our dog is sleeping over there twitching as well. No, but thank you for being on and to be on the podcast and to have your hair stick to the microphone continuously.
Yeah.
And I'll have to think of another topic. I'm sure there's plenty of other things we can talk about, like both running businesses from home and how to stay married. And that's not an easy topic.
Staying married while running your own businesses, staying married while working within the same business, working from home,
maybe
now having a kid while you're working from home and doing all the things.
Talk about that. And then maybe we can bring in Tim, your brother who works with me, to talk about working with family. Because I think that is a tough.
And we know a lot of people that do that.
Yeah, plenty of people, family businesses, husband and wife.
Which I think is great.
Work together. So maybe we'll bring you back for that.
Sure.
Should I end every episode like
Please.
holding hands or just start?
Can you do this with Jason?
Yeah, I'll do this with Jason.
Okay.
No, I'm not. Jason will try to do it with me, and I will
try to do it with
back
you.
up my chair. So,
Yeah.
so if you want to learn more about Jen or check out any of the show notes, any of the things we mentioned in this episode, go to calebwojcik.com/78, and it'll take you right there. Let me check the time on this camera. We have 1 minute, which means we have between 0 and 2 minutes. Rapid fire the tools you use, software and stuff like that to run your wedding photography business. We'll end with that.
Website was Squarespace, photo editing software Lightroom, gear was all Canon and prime lenses. So the 50 is my bread and butter, and also the 35.
Hosting your images?
Hosting my images, Pixie Set, love Pixie Set as far as like delivering,
Photo Lab.
really curated gallery.
What
for your
photo lab
clients.
did you use for film?
For film, it was Goodman Photo Lab in Irvine. They're amazing. Shout out to Alex.
What else did you use for contracts? 17 Hats.
17 Hats.
Was like invoicing and contracts.
Big part of my day-to-day business life was, invoicing contracts, budgets, even though like you ran the books on most of the stuff that I did.
InDesign and stuff like that for albums. And rapid fire software tools, tips. All right. Thanks, Jen, for joining me.
Yeah.